We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of? Very good. You remember your high school civics class. Let's spend a few moments today together exploring what behaviors and attitudes can optimize the probability that we human beings can be truly happy. Now, why should we do this? Two reasons. Several years ago, the Princeton Review did a survey of major colleges and universities to find out, on average, how happy their student bodies were. Guess which college scored the second most unhappy? Right on, Georgia Tech. And you know, that's not all bad. Texas A&M was first. That's not all bad. The colleges where you have a good quality of life, but more important, where you have to work to get your degree. And when you work at it, the degree is actually worth something. Those were tended to be less happy. The party schools, of course, rated themselves very, very happy. But there's a second, more important reason we need to look at happiness. Statistically valid studies show that people who rate themselves as consistently happy have less minor illnesses, like headaches and stomach aches and colds, and less major illnesses, like heart attacks and strokes and cancer. It's called the mind-body connection. And since this is a health class, it behooves us to look at this. And you took the little survey as part of this class. You just get a little number that tells you how happy you are. Ranges from 0 to 35. Happy is 35, 0 is unhappy. So you already have an index as to how happy you are. We will see how the material in this lecture applies to you based on your happiness score. My name is Miller Templeton, and of the 70-odd years I've been alive, only the first 18 of them were not associated with Georgia Tech. Just like you, I was a student here back in the late 50s, early 60s, becoming educated in physics, nuclear science, nuclear engineering. Went to work for Tech in '68 as assistant dean of students. And guess what? After 4 years as assistant dean of students, it became obvious that my knowledge of protons, neutrons, quarks, gluons, and neutron diffusion equations was perhaps not the best background to help Tech students achieve their goals. So I went back to Georgia State University and became educated in counseling and psychology with a focus on young adult development and adolescent psychology. And it's from that background much of this afternoon's symposium will be drawn, okay? I became director of what's now the Office of International Education in the early 80s, and I retired from Tech in 1998 after 30 years of service. During my 30 years, I advised over 20 different clubs and organizations. I ran dorms for 35 years, 5 as a grad student. I founded ORGT in its present form, and in that capacity took a sabbatical from Georgia Tech in 1982 and hiked the 2,170 miles of the Appalachian Trail in 87 days, an incredible experience. I have also founded Study Abroad in its present form, and in that capacity in '94 I was the first tour leader for the cities tour and the on-site director at Oxford. Then in '96 I founded the Winter Quarter Down Under, which is the study abroad program now known as the Pacific Program, where you go to Australia, New Zealand, Japan, China, the islands. It's really fantastic. We started all that. And I still led tours even after I had retired on up through the early 2000s. Now, I taught Psychology 1010, a really great course throughout the 90s. It was the psychology of adjustment to college life. Great course. That was a precursor to GT 1000. I still serve as advisor to RGT, advisor to the President's Scholars Program, guest lecturer for clubs, classes, and organizations, and as mentor to Tech students. Now that's a little bit about me. I need to know some things about you. How many of you are freshmen? Hands up. A smattering. How many are sophomores? More. Okay. Juniors? A good number. Seniors. Oh, you've saved the best for last. Have to have it to graduate, and it's getting close, right? How many of you are in-state? Hands up. That's the vast majority of you. How many are out of state? Okay, a few. No Hope scholarships there, but out of state. Fine. How many of you live on campus? Hands up. That's most of you. How many of you live off campus? Mostly the upperclassmen. How many of you enrolled in the College of Engineering, Mechanical, Electrical, Chemical? Okay, that's about half. College of Science, Math, Chemistry, Biology, Physics. College of Computing, good representation. Ivan Allen College Liberal Studies. College of Business Administration, we just changed the name. College of Architecture and Fine Arts. Okay, you're normative. That's pretty much the standard distribution at Georgia Tech. Now, how many of you, as a result of your homework assignment, know or have access to your Myers-Briggs type, your locus of control, your hostility score, and your satisfaction with life score? Should be everybody. Come on. You either know it or you have access to it. These will come to bear in today's symposium, okay? Now, long ago, in a galaxy far, far away, I was leading a backpack for ORGT, Outdoor Recreation Georgia Tech. Now these backpacks, they happen on the weekend. You leave campus Saturday morning, drive to the trailhead, hike all day Saturday, camp out Saturday night, hike back Sunday morning, drive back to Tech Sunday afternoon, and you study Sunday night, okay? When you're with everybody, elbow to armpit for 36 hours, you get to know everybody pretty well. And we were hiking back to the cars, and behind me was a delightful freshman named Scott. And out of the clear blue, Scott says, "Miller, you seem like a very happy person, and yet you're not married. How do you explain that?" Now in psychology, this was known as a teachable moment. And here's how I answered Scott. I had said, "Scott, I have tons of friends. I have friends who are married who are very, very happy. And I have friends who are married who are so unhappy, they may not stay married very long. And I have friends who are single who are very, very happy. They can go when and where they want to. And I have friends who are single who are miserable. They feel like they're lonely all the damn time." And Scott, I have friends who are rich, who are really happy. They have everything their heart desires. And I have friends who are rich who will slit their wrists tomorrow in all probability. Because all they do is spend their time worrying about, will I lose my assets? Will I lose my assets? And Scott, I have friends who are poor, who are very unhappy. They don't have the basic necessities of life. And I have friends who are poor as church mice, who are incredibly happy. They're really thankful for what they do have. And Scott, here's where the rubber hits the road. I know tech students who have a 4.0 who are very happy. They feel like they've achieved their potential. And I know tech students who have a 4.0 who are absolutely miserable. They have no life. They go to class, they study, they sleep, they eat, that's it. And I know students who have a 2.0 who are really miserable. They feel like they let themselves down, let their parents down, they're not doing well. But Scott, I know students who have a 2.0 who are happy beyond belief. They ought to be. They party all the time. And so we went through this litany of opposites. People who live in the city, live in the country, people who are attractive, people who are homely. When I got through, I said, "Scott, what do you deduce from this?" And he, being pretty sharp, said, "You know, happiness probably doesn't depend on external circumstances. It's something inside of you." And I said, "Bingo, you get a gold star." What we're going to do is look at 11 characteristics of happy people as determined by the research of David Myers and Ed Diener. These are two psychologists known as the gurus of happiness, who have studied tens of thousands of people in America, Japan, and Western Europe. Tens of thousands. They gave them the same little satisfaction with life scale that you had as a homework assignment for this class. And in addition to that, they ask them a gazillion questions about themselves. And then they correlate their score with the answers to the questions. And what they found is there are 6 characteristics that happy people world over almost always have. And there are 5 more that appear with a high enough frequency that it's worth us giving some attention to it. And it's interesting, if you score low on that scale, you're unhappy. And they had data on those people too. What they found was the unhappy people, their characteristics were either the absence of or the opposite of the characteristics of the happy people. So that was good information both ways. And so from this research, we can see a lot of cool stuff. Now, this is so important, we're going to give it to you in 3 doses. I'm going to give it to you verbally. Number 2, just type the 11 main points and some of the subpoints into your laptop or write them down. This will reinforce it if you actually go through this process of typing or writing. And number 3, we're going to post model lecture notes on the class webpage after the lecture, and you can print it out and you'll have it verbally, or visually, I'm sorry, in addition to verbally. And so you can look at it if you're a visual learner. So you'll have all 3. And before we start, we ought to ask, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Meaning, do you think perhaps people are born with a genetic proclivity to be happy? We find all kinds of things about people hidden in the genome. Maybe so, sports fans, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you're born with a proclivity to happiness, and therefore you just assume these 11 characteristics. Whatever your level is, whatever you're born with, by developing these characteristics, you can rise above it. By not doing it, you can fall below it. It's up to you. And happiness, as you have probably gathered, is a big deal in our society. Here's Time magazine, cover story on happiness, really good. The notes are going to have reference to a lot of material. The notes published on the class webpage, it tells you how you can find this Time magazine online. It's got a really good cutting-edge research about happiness in it. The Economist, published worldwide, comes out of London, published all over the world. Cover story, happiness. Happiness is a big deal. So, I'm going to give you a lot of other references in the lecture. They're all in the notes. You don't have to copy them down. And I'm going to give you the characteristics in random order. What I give you is number 1. Maybe when Myers and Diener did the research with this group was number 4. And what was 5 was number 3, etc. These are random order. So let us begin. First characteristic of happy people. They love themselves. In psychobabble, this is called having high self-esteem. And as students in college, you need to know you love yourself in 2 ways, with your mind and your body. You love yourself with your mind through a practice called positive self-talk. And my fine furried friends, if you don't do this, I suggest you get with it and learn this. Positive self-talk, you simply talk out loud, or you not quite as good, you mentally go through it. You pat yourself on the back when you've done good. So, you come out of a class holding in your hand a quiz that has not just an A on it, it's got a 100. Great opportunity for positive self-talk. You look at that 100 and you say, you know, this is a validation of the fact that I've got it together academically. I know how to study. I know the importance of getting sleep before quizzes. I know the importance of going to class, doing homework. I know how to do all the academic stuff. This tells me I've got it together academically. That's positive self-talk. Very reinforcing. Or you go to some gathering, a wedding reception, a party, whatever. People are milling around talking. And you find somebody you really hit it off with. There's an electricity between the two of you. And when the event is over, you say, wow, I really enjoyed meeting you. Let's meet at Starbucks Friday at 3 and take over where we left off. And the person says, absolutely. I super enjoyed getting to know you and talking to you. You seem like a really neat person. And you walk away from that with positive self-talk. You say, it's so cool that I know how to form bonds with people, that I know the importance of smiling and being a good listener and talking in terms of their interests. It's really good that I'm socially adroit to the point where when I interact with people, they want to continue that interaction. Positive self-talk. Do it. Number 2, you love yourself with your body. And you start off by giving it enough sleep. Demographically, you're in an age group that really thrives best on 8 to 10 hours sleep per night, but minimum 7.5. And you need, if you're not getting this, it would be really great for you to make a calendar and schedule it and put sleep on there so you start getting enough. Really important. Minimum 7.5. Number 2, you got to feed your body right. You'll learn nutrition in this class. Number 3, you got to exercise it. And we've done research right here at Tech in health and performance science that has proved beyond the shadow of a doubt exercise increases self-esteem. We know that. And number 4, you can't abuse substances. You cannot abuse substances. Those are the 4 ways you love yourself with your body. Second characteristic of happy people is they love other people. Now here your Myers-Briggs type comes into play, sports fans. You were asked to do your Myers-Briggs type as homework for this class. It's 4 letters. First letter is an E or an I. If your first letter is an E, that means you prefer to focus on the world outside of yourself and the people in it and to love those people. If you're an I, it means you prefer to focus inward and plop down in a lazy boy with a good beverage and a magazine and read and think about your values, your philosophies, your thoughts. You look inward. Both E's and I's can learn to love other people. It's just a little easier for an E. An I has to put a little more emotional energy into it. So be aware of how your Myers-Briggs type affects your ability to love other people. Now, to love other people, there are about 4 things that are really important. Number 1, if you want to become a master, and sports fans, I mean a master, of forming bonds with other people, I suggest you run, not walk, to the bookstore and get 2 books. One, a copy of Dale Carnegie's How to Influence and Influence People. He came up with 6 principles that cause people to like each other. He did this in the 1930s, and since then, sociologists and psychologists have had a heyday with those principles and validated all of them. They really work. But he missed one! And in 1970, the psychologist Manuel Smith discovered that you have to self-disclose. Dale Carnegie missed that. You have to share yourself with other people and get them to share themselves with you. And therefore, this is very well written out in When I Say No, I Feel Guilty by Manuel Smith, the importance of self-disclosure. So you put them together, you got 7 principles. Master those if you want to learn how to form bonds with people. Number 2, second thing about loving other people, the noted psychologist Harry Stack Sullivan has what we psychologists call the behavioral definition of love. It comes in several different forms. Here's the form I like. To love another person is to be totally committed to helping the other person be everything they want to be in the present and become everything they want to become in the future. It's not about me. It's about the other person. And of course, when 2 people have this kind of love for each other, it's awesome. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And sports fans, I don't know if you've ever been in a relationship, are in a relationship, or want to be in a relationship. If you want insight to love in this deeper sense, you have got to get The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck. Been around for 30 years, incredible book. Only got 4 chapters. Second chapter is love. And he gives insight to this concept of love in this deeper meaning like you cannot believe. Sports fan, this is so important that if I were governor of the state of Georgia, I would lobby the legislature to say, in Georgia, you can't get a marriage license until you've passed a written test on the love chapter of The Road Less Traveled. It's that important. Hey, we have to take a written test to get a driver's license? How much more important to our society are stable families than being able to drive a car in a straight line? It would cut the divorce rate in half, in my opinion. So you do that. Third comment about love. Here in the University System of Georgia, we have a fabulous centenarian research group. We study the Georgians who live to be 100. And we found out a lot of cool things about them. But one thing they all have in common, they have positive relationships with friends and family. They have learned to love other people. And one of the results of that, they live to be 100. And lastly, all the great musicals of the 40s and 50s are written by the same 2 guys, Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein. They wrote Sound of Music, South Pacific, Carousel, Showboat, all of them. It has been said that Richard Rogers wrote the following poem on a Valentine to a friend one February. Here it is. A bell's not a bell till you ring it. A song's not a song till you sing it. And the love in your heart wasn't put there to stay, because love isn't love till you give it away. Love's one of the few things in the world, my fine furried friends, such that the more of it you give away, more of it you have. I can think of two others. Hate. The more you hate, the more of a hateful person you become. And anger. The more you manifest the behavioral characteristics of anger, the more of an angry person you become. I vote for love. Third characteristic of happy people, they believe they are in control of their life. You took the locus of control test, and you scored either internal or external. If you scored external locus of control, that means you kind of more or less believe you're a leaf born in the wind. All you can do is react to what goes on around you. But the critical characteristic of external locus of control is the person doesn't believe there's any correlation between their effort and their outcome. No matter how hard or how little they work, the outcome is roll the dice. Internal locus of control, however, believes I'm master of my fate, captain of my soul. If I want something to happen, you better believe I'm going to make it happen. And that my effort correlates directly with my outcome. To put this in perspective, take two students, one with internal locus control, external locus control, throw them in a class, give them a quiz, they both make an A. Student with the internal locus of control looks at the A and says, you know, I earned this A. I knew this material cold. I studied for weeks before the quiz, I got sleep the night before, came to all the classes, did all the homework. I knew the material cold. I earned the A. Student with an external locus of control looks at the A and says, well, what do you know? The dice rolled up in my favor. I just happened to study the subjects that the professor quizzed us about on the test. I could have just as easily failed had he gone another direction, as though his efforts had nothing to do with the outcome. And it's probably no surprise to you to learn that if we take 1,000 college students with an external locus of control and average their GPA, and take 1,000 college students with an internal locus of control and average their GPA, internal will be higher. When you have statistically valid groups, the higher the internal locus of control, the higher the GPA. So if you scored really external and don't have a good GPA, you can go to counseling and go through some exercises that'll make you more internal. I recommend it. Fourth characteristic is happy people are optimistic. And let's frame this by coming at it from the other direction with what's called the suicide's mantra. Right before the suicide does him or herself in, they say to themselves, I'm no good, you're no good, the world's no good, and tomorrow it's not going to be any better and probably going to be worse. Whereas the optimist says, I'm great, you're great, the world's great, tomorrow's going to be even better. And optimism is a really big deal in our society. We do research about it. Here's a research paper from University of California at Berkeley. Research finds that optimism is associated with longer life. How about them apples? People over 50 who viewed aging as a positive experience lived an average of 7.5 years longer than those who did not. Those classified as optimists had half the risk of early death. Hey, I'll vote for that one. Those classified than those who were mixed or pessimistic. Optimists had fewer problems as they aged, fewer limitations, less pain, more energy. And if you're not sure whether or not you're optimistic, ask your friends. Your friends will tell you, no, you're a pessimist or you're an optimist. If you're pessimistic, go grab the book Learned Optimism by Marty Siegelman. Fantastic book. Starts off with a quiz where you can find out how optimistic or pessimistic you are. And if you're pessimistic, he takes you through a series of exercises that will make you more optimistic. So be optimistic. Highly desirable. Fifth characteristic of happy people is they focus on the world outside of themselves. Now, this is the Myers-Briggs type again. That's almost the definition of the E preference. If you're an E, you prefer to focus on the world outside of yourself. And I's do it, just takes more emotional energy. And you and I know that there are a gazillion ways to focus on the world outside of yourself. Studies show that 3 are particularly important. Number 1, get a job. Get a job. Human beings operate better within structure, and a job gives you a life structure. Hey, you got a job right now. What is it? Student at Georgia Tech pursuing your degree. And man, oh man, does it give you a life structure. Up at 7, shower and eat breakfast, class at 8, class at 9, go to the library and study from 10 to 12, lunch from 12 to 1, class from 1 to 2, from 2 to 4, go to CRC and work out, 4 to 5, relax, 5 to 6, supper, 6 to 7, hang out with friends, 7 to 12, study. Next day, repeat. It gives structure to your life like you can't believe. And it's a good thing. In American society, a job is important in a different way. Studies show it's part of our identity. How many times have you introduced yourself, or more likely your parents introduced you? They drug you over to a friend at a wedding reception and said, hey, I want you to meet my daughter Sally. She's a mechanical engineer at Georgia Tech. That's your job right now, mechanical engineering. And they tack that on to your name as part of your identity. Or you meet somebody at some other gathering and the person says, my name's Ignatius P. Donlevy. I'm an engineer with Lockheed. They tack their job on as part of their identity. So it is a big deal. Now, a second way to focus on the world outside of yourself is to enjoy the power of touch. Now, in this age of sexual harassment, we must be careful how we use the power of touch, okay? Got to be careful. But psychologists and sociologists had a wake-up call back in the early 1900s when, for no reason, babies were dying in orphanages in London. No reason. They were not genetically deformed, they were not starved, they were not malnourished, they were not sick, they just died. And when the Ministry of Health sent people in to investigate, they found that the babies who were dying were not touched. They were given a bottle perfunctory where it was placed between their lips. Their diapers were changed very quickly, but they were never picked up and held. The babies who were picked up and held lived. Those who were not touched died. That was a wake-up call. Touch is really important. There's a lot to it here. In our present society, touch is really only appropriate in 2 ways. Ritual touch, which is a handshake, and if a bond of trust exists. You have a bond of trust with your mom and dad, so when you haven't seen them in a long time, you give them a big hug. You tussle with your brothers and sisters. You put an arm around the shoulder of a sorority sister or a fraternity brother, because the bond of trust is there. Without a bond of trust, it's not appropriate. It's really interesting that the American Dairy Association, now that's the dairy farmers, you know, the guys that have to get up at 4 in the morning to milk the cows. They have both a fabulous ritual touch and a big bond of trust. I need a volunteer. You'll do. Stand up. Stand sideways where they can see us. That's it. Now, first of all, when you go in for interviews, before we talk about the dairy farmers, be sure you give a strong handshake that communicates self-confidence. Characteristics of a strong handshake, the ritual touch, this skin fold between the thumb and the finger must touch. Bang. See that? That's a strong handshake. If that skin fold doesn't touch, dead fish, dead fish. If the interviewer tries to give that to you, man, you pull back and do it again, where you make the handshake strong. And that's women and men. Both have to have a strong handshake. But we digress. The American Dairy Association, these guys get together, they're used to milking cows at 4 in the morning. They have a really great handshake. Do this. And so the members of the American Dairy Association shake hands like this. Don't try this at home, okay? Thank you so much. But enjoy the power of touch, but do it legitimately, okay? And the third way you focus on the world outside of yourself is you give to others. Now, sports fans, you may not realize this, but in college, you have the capability of giving to others in really big ways and in little ways. You can give in big ways. You can give up 8, 10, 12 precious hours of your study time during the week through TechWord tutorial to tutor an underprivileged kid in math and reading. That's giving in a big way. Or give up whole weekends to help build a house for a less fortunate family through Habitat for Humanity. You can give in little ways. You come back from the post office, lugging a care package your grandmother has just sent you, and you meet along the tech walkway a friend, and you say, "Here, have a chocolate chip cookie." That's giving in little ways. Do both. Give in big ways, give in little ways. And the sixth characteristic of happy people is they search for meaning until they find it. Now, you and I both know that normally in our society, people who find meaning find it as an expression of religious faith, but there's other ways to find meaning in life. What's interesting to me is when Mars and Diener do the survey, they have a place for comments, and it's not uncommon for people to write a comment something like this. Because I searched for meaning in life and found it, I believe these other characteristics that I've written out in this survey became possible. I love myself, I love other people, I'm optimistic, etc. So that's a biggie. Those six always appear when Mars and Diener do their research. 5 others appear with a high enough frequency to be worth our time. Number 7, you got to live one day at a time. In psychobabble, this is called present moment living. Think about it. Yesterday is gone. Nothing we can do will bring it back. Tomorrow may not be here, at least not in the form we think it will. Today, sports fans, is all we got. So you got to make the most of it. Several years ago, actually 2 decades ago, the #1 hit song on the country music list of hits was a song entitled "Live One Day at a Time." It had great words and great music. You can probably find it on iTunes. Live one day at a time. I will not sing it for you, but I will repeat some of the words. It said, "Tomorrow may never be mine. Show me the way. Teach me today to live one day at a time." And you know what? College students are great at this. I have seen on the tech campus on several occasions the T-shirt. What does the T-shirt say if you're focused on living for today? Carpe diem. What does that mean? Seize the day. You write it, and you'll see that. I also have seen some rather shady-looking students moping around campus wearing a T-shirt saying "Carpe noctem," seize the night, yes. But carpe diem, seize the day, really important. Present moment living. Now, wait, stop. Does present moment living, where I live for today, mean I don't have to worry about next week's physics quiz? No, 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 no. Because in my handy-dandy day planner, where I've got all my day's activities written, it says, tonight, from 8 to 10, study for next week's physics quiz. Present moment living does not absolve us from tomorrow's responsibilities, but it does make life pretty special. 8th characteristic of happy people is they laugh and smile a lot. I believe in old grandmother's sayings. Don't be penny wise and pound foolish. Stitch in time saves 9. Apple a day keeps the doctor away. One of them you don't hear as much is the time you need most to laugh and smile is the time you feel least like laughing and smiling. You don't feel like it, so you do it anyway, and it brings you up. Characteristic of happy people. 9th characteristic of happy people, and this is a big one, sports fans, they avoid self-defeating behaviors. Now, this is pretty heavy psychologically. I hesitate to lay it on you, but I'm going to anyway. Self-defeating behaviors in psychology is defined as a behavior that has an immediate payoff, but the long-term consequence is negative. And I want you to remember the 5 standard self-defeating behaviors that happy people avoid like the plague. ABC, Gone with the Wind. There they are. ABC, Gone with the Wind. A stands for anger. Look at your hostility score. Look at your anger subscale. If your anger subscale was more than 7, that means anger is having a negative effect on your life and you need to do something about it. And I'm going to tell you in a minute what you can do about it. But anger is generally used to manipulate people. You get angry at someone who either did do something you didn't want them to do, or they didn't do something you did want them to do. And so you go, "Roar!" and get angry at them. And they get their act together and do it or not do it. There's a better way, because they'll get it done, but they hate your guts a little bit. That's why it's a self-defeating behavior. When you get angry at people, the immediate payoff is it gets the job done. The long-term negative consequence is people don't like you. B is, well, let's talk about what happens if you have a high anger score. First of all, I suggest you go grab the incredible book. This was #1 on the nonfiction bestseller list when it first came out. It's Wayne Dyer's book, Your Erroneous Zones. Now, it's not a dirty book. It's not your erogenous zones. It's your erroneous zones. That's his tongue-in-cheek terminology for self-defeating behaviors. And he has a chapter about every one of them. Anger, blaming, complaining. See, I've given away my mnemonic. Guilt, worry, jealousy, procrastination. There's a chapter about everyone. Tells why we do it, what the short-term payoff is, what the long-term negative consequence is, and how to eliminate it. And so if you really are letting anger have too big a part of your life, go read the anger chapter in Erroneous Zones. It'll help. If that doesn't work, go get counseling. If that doesn't work, my email address is on the class notes. It's going to be published on the webpage. Email me. We'll meet at Starbucks for coffee, and I will help you not just manage anger. I can help you get rid of anger. So that's the first one, ABC, Gone with the Wind. Second self-defeating behavior is blaming. Who cares who knocked the bottle over? The milk is spilled. What's important? Clean it up. You got it. Doesn't matter who did it. See, that's the immediate payoff. If I sit around and blame, I don't have to do any work. The long-term consequence is milk drips all over everybody in the floor. Not good. Blaming, don't do it. Complaining, really bad. The immediate payoff when you complain about something is you don't have to do anything about it. Long-term consequence is, since you don't do anything about it, whatever you're complaining about still exists. And when I'm leading a backpack for RGT, I encourage the students not to say, "Oh, I'm so hot. Oh, it's too hot." No, you don't do that. That's complaining. You pour your water bottle over your head. You take off a layer of clothing. You walk more slowly. You sit down and rest. You use the energy you would have put into complaining to change the circumstance about which you are complaining. That's the name of the game. ABC, Gone with the Wind. G and W. In psychology, G and W are opposite sides of the same psychological plane. G is guilt, wasting emotional energy over something happened in the past. W is worry, wasting emotional energy over something that might happen in the future. Both of them are useless. Instead of being guilty, you say, "That was dumb and I'm not going to do it anymore," and you get on with life. Instead of worrying, "Oh, I'm so worried about the physics quiz." No, what do you do instead with that emotional energy? Study. You get ready for the physics quiz. Way to go. So happy people avoid self-defeating behaviors. Now, happy people number 10, and this is tough, I have found, for a lot of people at Georgia Tech. Happy people take time to waste time. They take time to waste time. Your Myers-Briggs type comes into play here. If you're an SP, E you're an I, S, T you're an F, P, you're an SP, you are a master of the use of leisure time. You can drop anything in the wink of an eye and go have fun. You're blessed if you're an SP. If you're an NTJ, as a lot of tech students are, any combination of that, you have to schedule your leisure time. You got this great big calendar of the week. Here's Saturday. You fill it in on your calendar, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Have fun, hang out with friends, do nothing, enjoy myself, relax, go to movies, whatever. You schedule it. Happy people take time to waste time. And the 11th characteristic of happy people is they are grateful/thankful. And they do this in 3 ways. Let's test you. Let's see if you are thankful in these 3 ways. Number 1, you are thankful to your friends and family for their support, both emotional and financial. When was the last time you went to Mom and Dad and said, Mom and Dad, thank you for the finances you've poured into me while I've been at Tech, and thank you for the emotional support you've given me? When's the last time you did that? You're thankful to friends and family. Number 2, if you believe in a higher power, you're thankful to the higher power for the blessings it's given you. And number 3, and this is not obvious, but it's really important, you sit down and you think about your state of being, and you give thanks for it. I'm thankful I live in a free country. I'm thankful that I'm financially secure. I'm thankful that I come from a good socioeconomic level. I'm thankful that I'm good looking. I'm thankful that I have lots of friends. This is your state of being. Be thankful for your state of being. So, sports fans, this has been kind of like drinking from a fire hose, but we have learned a lot. And a lot of what we learned is obvious, and a lot is not obvious. Let me show you what I'm talking about. One thing we've learned is obvious. Happiness is internal. We take it with us wherever we go by having these attitudes and doing these behaviors. And guess what? Unhappiness is internal. You take it with you wherever you go. So I suggest you vote for happiness. Number 2, this is kind of obvious. We're free to choose. You didn't just fall off the turnip truck. You've already got some of the characteristics of happy people. Okay. You're free to choose if you want to acquire all of these things, especially the ones you don't have. Number 3 is not obvious. Number 3, happiness is a journey. It's not a destination. It's stuff you do throughout your life. It's a journey. People say, oh, I'll be happy when I have $1 million. Or I'll be happy when I marry John or Susie. That's a destination. Happiness goes throughout your life. Now, there's one exception to that. There is an exception to happiness being a journey. You will be happy when you graduate from Georgia Tech, right? Amen. You seniors, it's getting close. So you now have 3 tasks, my fine furried friends, aside from memorizing the content of this lecture for the next test. Aside from that, you got to decide if these 11 factors will work for you. Number 2, you got to decide which ones you got. And number 3, you got to decide if you want to acquire the ones you don't got. So, take it from me. If you choose this journey, remember it's not a destination, it's a journey. If you choose this journey, you will find worth for your life that will remain long after the last thermodynamic equation has quietly slipped away. I suggest you go for it.